What's up guys, Mike here, and today we're looking at 4 of the biggest choke jobs in basketball history. Now, these 4 choke jobs were chosen by me because not only did they cause a team to lose a single game or series, it also went beyond that. Many of these choke jobs got into players' heads and affected them for the rest of their careers. So in the grand scheme of basketball history, these moments mean a lot. And one quick note before we start, guys, I've gotten a lot of requests to make NBA 2K17 videos, so I'm going to make NBA 2K17 videos. But I want to keep this channel as just a high quality content basketball channel. So I'm going to start a second channel where I'm going to post daily content. Now, a lot of it's going to be NBA 2K17 content, but there's also going to be vlogs, funny stories from me. I'm planning on doing a house tour on that channel in just a few weeks when I move into my new place. Basically, there's going to be a whole lot of fun stuff there, and I think you'll really enjoy subscribing to that kind of content. So make sure to go subscribe. The link is somewhere on the screen, I'm sure, and down below in the description. And with that out of the way, let's look at 4 of the biggest choke jobs in basketball history. Number 4. Michael Jordan. From 1991 to 1993, Michael Jordan was on top of the basketball world. In those 3 years, he won 2 MVPs, won 3 NBA championships, and won 3 finals MVPs. At the time, there was real fear struck in the hearts of NBA players and personnel everywhere because would anyone be able to stop Michael Jordan and the Bulls from winning every championship for the rest of the decade? And then, Michael shocked the world by retiring to play baseball. Or he retired due to his massive gambling problem. Whatever you want to believe, regardless of why he retired, Jordan spent the next 2 years as a subpar baseball player until he returned for the end of the 1995 regular season. The end of the 95 season saw Jordan play in 17 games, but he was rusty. Taking 2 years off of competitive basketball takes a toll on anyone, even the greatest player we've ever seen. Still, the Bulls were able to fight their way into the playoffs and were able to defeat the Charlotte Hornets in the first round, which led the Bulls to a second round matchup against the Orlando Magic, featuring a young Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway. Leading up to the 1995 NBA playoffs, the Orlando Magic had yet to win a playoff game in their brief history as a franchise. This meant that their second round matchup against the Bulls was a real test, as the Magic were a team full of inexperienced talent while the Bulls still had the glow of 3 championships upon them. And so, despite the fact that they finished first in the Eastern Conference for the 95 season, many saw the Magic as the underdog to the Bulls in their first ever playoff matchup. And Game 1 seemingly held true to form, as with just 18 seconds to go, the Bulls held a 1-point lead over the Magic and seemed destined to hold on to the win. But then Nick Anderson made the biggest play of his career. With the game on the line, Anderson pressured Jordan as he made his way up the court, nearly stealing the ball in the backcourt. And at first, Jordan seemed to compose himself, but then Anderson poked the ball away from behind. The ball ended up in Penny's hands, who immediately took off in transition, a fast break that would eventually end with a Horace Grant dunk. This gave the Magic the lead, a lead they would hold on to, winning Game 1 and eventually winning the entire series in 6 games. If MJ had just dribbled the ball safely down the court, the outcome of this game and series may have been drastically different. For all we know, Michael Jordan could have retired with 7 championship rings instead of 6. Instead, we're left with the Nick Anderson steal, the last time as a Chicago Bull that Michael Jordan did not execute in the clutch. Number 3. Nick Anderson. What goes around comes around. You've heard that phrase before, you know what it means. But perhaps never have these words rung more true than with the case of Nick Anderson. Blame it on Michael Jordan's ghost. Blame it on Nick's ability in the clutch. All I know is that just 1 month after Nick Anderson stole the ball from Michael Jordan, he was met with his own moment that would forever haunt him for the rest of his career. As we have already discussed, the 1995 NBA playoffs saw the Magic defeat the Chicago Bulls in the Eastern Conference semifinals. From there, they went on to narrowly outmatched the Indiana Pacers in 7 games, setting up a 1995 NBA Finals matchup against the Houston Rockets. The Rockets were defending NBA champions and were led by Hall of Fame center Hakeem Olajuwon, but were considered by many to be the underdog in this finals matchup. Orlando had just finished the season with the top record in the East, while Houston had only won 47 games and were only the 6th seed in the West. At the very least, this matchup was expected to be a basketball war, a series that would be decided in 6 or 7 hard-fought games. And then, in Game 1 of the 1995 NBA Finals, the Orlando Magic found themselves in control for most of the game, at one point even leading by 20 points. But the Rockets fought back, eventually taking a lead into the 4th quarter. From there, the teams traded baskets and leads, which eventually led to this. With just under 11 seconds left, Nick Anderson was intentionally fouled by the Rockets. At this point, the Magic led by 3 points, and all Anderson had to do was sink 1 free throw and the game would be decided. decided. His first free throw was short. His second free throw was even shorter. But still, somehow, Nick Anderson was able to come up with the rebound after a second miss and was again fouled. Just like last time, all he had to do was sink a single free throw and the game would be decided. Keep in mind, for the season, Anderson was a 70% free throw shooter, which didn't matter because his third shot was now long, and his fourth shot was long. Cue to Kenny Smith draining an incredibly clutch three-pointer to tie the game. Cue to the Rockets winning game 1. Cue to Houston sweeping the Orlando Magic in 4 games. If Nick Anderson had just hit 1 of 4 free throws, NBA history may have been rewritten. Instead, the Rockets won the 1995 NBA championship, and Nick Anderson's career was forever ruined. Because at the time of the 1995 NBA Finals, Nick Anderson was considered a solid starter on a championship contender. He was never an all-star, but he was a team player you could count on to win you games. But all of that changed once he missed the 4 free throws in game 1. These missed free throws would haunt the rest of his career, plummeting his free throw percentage to just above 40% for the 97 season. As Anderson later said, "It affected the way I played. It affected the way I lived. It played in my head like a recorder over and over again." So in the grand scheme of the greatest choke jobs in basketball history, not only did Nick Anderson ruin the Orlando Magic's chance to win a title, he also ruined his own career, which to me gives him some serious bonus points. Number 2. Patrick Ewing. Okay, so we're at the moment in this video where I have to point out that somehow 3 of these moments occurred in the same year, which to me proves that bad things really do come in threes. The 1994 NBA Finals saw the New York Knicks matched up against the Houston Rockets. Both teams were desperate to win a championship in a year that Michael Jordan was finally out of the league, and thus both teams relied on their eventual Hall of Fame centers to bring them that championship. The Rockets were granted their wish as Hakeem dominated the 1994 Finals, embarrassing Ewing on a national stage while bringing Houston its first ever basketball championship. And yes, I mean it when I say that Patrick Ewing was embarrassed. He finished just shooting 36% from the field in a 7-game series loss, which meant that if Ewing had just performed to his usual standards, the Knicks would have walked away from the 94 season as NBA champions. But still, the city of New York was hopeful for the 95 season, but then they found themselves matched up against the Indiana Pacers. This series is famously remembered for Game 1, in which Reggie Miller scored 8 points in 9 seconds to lead the Pacers to an upset over the favored Knicks in the Garden. But what many people forget is that while Reggie Miller provided one of the most clutch moments in basketball history in Game 1, Patrick Ewing was just as unclutch in Game 7, because with the Knicks down 2 in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals, Patrick Ewing was inbounded the ball at the top of the key. From there, he took one dribble, made his way to the basket, and attempted a wide open layup to tie the game. And he missed. A miss that would later have people questioning why he did not just dunk the ball and send the game into overtime. And regardless of that, Patrick Ewing missed a wide open layup to tie the game in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals just 1 year after he choked away the 1994 Finals. So really, Patrick Ewing gave us a 2-for-1 choke job here, which is why this 2-season stretch goes down as one of the biggest choke jobs in basketball history. And number 1, Chris Webber. Now, up until this video, I've strictly made NBA content, which is nothing against college basketball. I just like the NBA a whole lot more. However, when making this video, I decided that Chris Webber's choke job just had to be included, because to many, this isn't just the greatest choke job in basketball history, it's also the greatest choke job in sports history. The 1992 college basketball season was marked as the beginning of the Fab Five era. Playing for the Michigan Wolverines, Chris Webber, Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard, Jimmy King, and Ray Jackson became the first team of freshmen to start for a national contender. Remember, these were the years where college stars routinely played until their junior or senior year, so it was rare to see a single freshman start for a college powerhouse, let alone a team full of them. But the Michigan Wolverines were different. In many ways, they changed the game of basketball forever. They took the court with shorts down to their knees. They played with a swagger that the kids of that era would later emulate and bring to high-level basketball teams across the country. And in the 1992 season, the Michigan Wolverines struggled at times, but eventually proved one of basketball's most important lessons. No matter how much you game plan, no matter how much you prepare, sometimes you just can't beat natural talent. The 92 Michigan squad, full of freshmen, reached the national championship game as a 6th seed. eventually losing to the Duke Blue Devils in the final game of their freshman year. Making the national championship as freshmen gave the Michigan Wolverines a huge target on their back as sophomores, but they lived up to expectations. Again, the 1993 season saw the Michigan Wolverines make the national championship game, this time matching up against the North Carolina Tar Heels, a matchup that would go down as one of the most memorable moments in college basketball history, because in the national championship game with the Michigan Wolverines down by 2 with just under 20 seconds remaining, the ball fell into Chris Webber's hands. Now remember, at the time the Fab Five were college basketball rock stars, but every band needs a lead man, and Michigan's lead man was Chris Webber, a first-team All-American and the eventual #1 draft pick in the 1993 draft. And so the Wolverines wanted the ball in Webber's hands. He was supposed to be the one who would come up clutch. And then the second he touched the ball, he traveled, which should have cost Michigan the game, but this play was missed by the referees, allowing Webber to make an even greater mistake, because as Webber brought the ball up into a half-court trap, he curled up and attempted to call a timeout, despite the fact that his coach Steve Fisher had reminded his whole team that they were out of timeouts just seconds before. This attempt at a timeout led to a technical foul, which gave North Carolina 2 free throws and possession of the ball. In other words, in the biggest game of his career, Chris Webber made the worst mistake in basketball history, potentially costing his team a national championship. This memory would go on to haunt him for the remainder of his career, as even though Chris Webber would eventually prove to be a 5-time All-Star, he never really delivered on the potential he once showed as a college basketball superstar. Many point to his errant timeout as the turning point of his career, the moment where he went from becoming a surefire NBA legend to just another NBA All-Star who at times showed flashes of true greatness. Throughout the rest of his career, in the game's greatest moments, Webber shied away from the ball in the clutch, begging the question, what if Chris Webber never called for a timeout in the closing seconds of the 1993 national championship game? Would he go on to seize the moments in the clutch? Would he go on to become one of the greatest power forwards of all time? As a prospect, he had all the tools. Unfortunately, he did choke, and we'll never know the answer to that question. And thank you for watching, guys. If you've made it this far, then you must kind of like me, I hope. So another quick reminder to go subscribe to my second channel. I think you'll really enjoy the content there. And as for the people who are subscribed to this channel, thank you guys so much for continuing to support me. It's been 2 days now since the 1-year anniversary on this channel, and it's just incredible to see how much we've grown in 1 year. That's all thanks to everyone who watches, who subscribes, who likes my videos, so thank you. And if you haven't subscribed, this is a basketball channel, so I make basketball videos, which include what if videos, conspiracy videos, basketball history videos. I do a whole lot here. Basically, if you like basketball, I think you'd love to subscribe, and I'd love to have you. And as always, my dudes, have an awesome day, and cue that music.